I was at the vending machines buying a drink, and I sensed a movement, and I glanced to my right, and I saw a black humanoid shape step out of my view as soon as I looked. He went around the corner. Never heard a door open. But I thought, that's a strange thing. What was that?
Episode 13. A lot of people are very superstitious about the number 13. And though I don't normally consider myself to be superstitious, I've got to say I'm feeling it right now. I just lost a loved one this past weekend, and I will tell you I did not want to have to do this show today. But as they say, the show must go on. And as a result, the editing and the mix might not be up to my normal standards. It is what it is. This was just kind of a relaxed conversation. So I brought back Josh and Derek. They're going to tell me some more of their experiences that we weren't able to get to last episode. And they really have a conglomeration of strange things that have happened to them, either separately or together. But between the two of them, we've got a lot of stories. But Josh was also not having the greatest time himself. He had just recently gotten some terrible news about his daughter the day that we were recording this episode. And we just kicked back and we ranted and rambled and talked about whatever, but we did stay on topic pretty well. I have to warn you, there is some more adult language being used in this episode. It's nothing big, it's just, I might as well tell you before you get into it. With that being said, if you have anything that you'd like to share on the show, any weird experiences or strange history that you might know about in Virginia, go ahead and shoot me an email at oddvirginia@protonmail.com. That's oddvirginia@protonmail.com. I'd love to hear from you and discover what you have experienced or what you have discovered yourself. Well, let's go ahead and get on to the round 2 with Josh and Derek. I can't wait to hear what they've got to offer, because here at Odd Virginia,
we're ready to believe you!
Round 2.
the boys are back. Derek, Josh.
What's up, man?
Howdy.
Welcome back. How you guys doing today?
Pretty good.
It's a day.
Thank you guys for coming into the studio. It's really good to have you back. So last time we talked about the house in Craigsville, the haunted house. We actually went out and visited as well. But Josh, you told me that wasn't everything to it. And I don't remember exactly what you said, but it did have something to do with a friend of yours and a Luigi board, also known as a Ouija board.
Yeah. Well, I'd mentioned that when I had first brought up the subject of the house, it was as a guy's party. And it was Derek here and our friend Daryl who wanted to go. Well, I was back at this guy's house. His name is we'll call him Brad. Let's call him Brad for the show.
I'm going to call him Brad.
Okay.
His name is Brad.
Yes, that's probably why I called him that. Shh. Anyway, I went back hanging out there. We hung out there a lot. Long story short. And I think I had mentioned the night that we discussed to Brad. And he said, I want to see this place. And our other friend, we'll call him Matt, was there. And he said, yeah, I'm down. So I'm like, okay, let's go back out. I'll show these guys. Well, Brad wanted to bring an Ouija board. And he did.
Ouija board.
That is exactly the sort of thing Brad would do. So we went out there. Went up to the second floor. I picked the second floor because it was a second floor window in which we saw whatever we saw. And it's not a very clear memory, but I do. The one thing that stands out is at one point the board claimed to be a child in need of medicine.
How many people were on the planchette when you were doing this?
2 or 3. I don't remember if I took part in it myself. The Ouija board is not something that I've ever been comfortable playing with. And another thing is I'm very skeptical when it comes to Ouija boards because you're relying on the infallibility of your partners.
Right. And
you never know who's faking and who's not. And I don't think I put much credence in it that moment. But what I was telling you is afterwards we kind of split up and were exploring the house, and I did find a glass medicine bottle in the pantry with a handwritten label and some cotton stuff down in it. And I'm not saying anything one way or the other, but it is one hell of a coincidence.
Because it had said something about its medication, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that is a hell of a coincidence, I'd say. It's definitely nothing solid, but
No.
it's weird enough, especially at the moment, I'm sure.
But I know neither of those guys had been in that house before. And no one had been back in the pantry. We went straight upstairs.
So it was you and two first-timers.
Correct.
And if they had known...
They couldn't have known. It could have been a coincidence.
Well, right. If they
there's
had
no way
made
they
up the
knew
thing
about the bottle. There's
about
no
the
way.
medicine bottle, then that was a hell of a coincidence. You're right.
And there's really not much more to say about that.
Okay.
I've been there so many times. It's hard to remember all of the times. There's
say 10 or more.
6 to 8 times back when I was going regularly. Something like that.
And there were 3 experiences altogether now that we've covered in that house.
I believe that's it. I don't recall at this time anything more happening.
Yeah, well, I'd say that's a pretty significant amount of activity for an old abandoned house.
So what did Brad think? Do you remember what Brad thought?
I don't recall. It's been so long ago.
Yeah. Brad was always into that kind of thing. He
Yeah.
kind of opened himself up for that.
Yeah, and Brad was also the kind of guy who would claim something was going on,
Yeah.
whether or not there was.
Well, a lot of it's like Mulder. He wants to believe.
Yeah, Brad wanted to believe in the wrong shit.
Sometimes
the wrong kind of thing, I should say.
Yeah.
Yeah, there are a lot of people like that who are just convinced that there's always something.
He claimed he had something following him that was evil.
Well,
from some time he explored some abandoned house, he said he picked something up that never left him.
God,
that's a pretty common notion. I'm not really sure the credibility of his particular experience or that of other people, but you do hear that a lot when people go to a place that has a lot of activity. Sometimes it'll then happen in their house too after they've gone.
Well, it's like when we went out there and took the ride out, a week or so ago, I found an antique marble there. And I'm thinking, why take chances? Because we saw something there. Why would I take the risk of bringing that into my house? Some influence I don't want in my life right now, because I don't know what the hell it is. I don't know what I saw.
I removed a newspaper from there once.
Did?
Yeah, but
yeah, you did say
there were
that
no
you
noticeable effects.
You did say that you had taken a few things from that house in the past. But yeah, I think it kind of is smart to leave things where they lay when it comes to a haunted area.
Right. Well, it's like through all my years of like researching and trying to find answers for things, I think that everything has an energy behind it. Consciousness and everything is an energy, and I think that maybe there's something we don't understand. Maybe like we don't know what it is, and it might have a way of seeing that we don't. It doesn't have these ghosts or phantasms, whatever you want to call them. They don't have eyes. They don't have vocal cords per se. So they use other methods of communicating with us.
Mm.
And maybe energy is just all relative. It's like it sees this like marble per se, and it's like, well, I'm going to attach to that. They've got it. I'm going to go with it. So I don't know. I don't know for sure. I just don't want to take any risk.
Well, yeah, it could be an item of like a sentimental value.
Exactly.
And so they'll a part of them will stay with that item,
right?
Perhaps.
I've never been 100% convinced that what we would refer to as a ghost is actually a sentient entity.
Right. Yeah.
I think, or I have thought in the past at times that perhaps there are thin places in space-time where we can see things that are no longer here physically in front of us. Almost like an echo or a stain.
I think it goes both ways.
I do too.
Because there are these instances in which they can communicate and interact with a person who's currently there and living. And then there are also the cases and instances where it feels like a tape is being rewound and played back. We call this a residual haunting.
Yeah. Mm. Well, I know what we saw. If hauntings are real, and I don't think what we saw was residual, because it reacted to 3 different people saying it at the same time, and this thing decides to move out of the way of our line of sight.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, it was
certainly
something.
appeared to be a reaction.
Yeah, it was. I mean, dude, it was the way it moved. It was just so crazy. It couldn't be a replay. I mean, you know, I don't know.
Yeah, I think that settles the Craigsville house stories, though.
Okay.
As far as all the experiences that you guys have had within it, whether anyone else has had an experience, has ever been out there, I'd love to hear about it. You can always send me an email and let me know. But moving on, Josh, I have in my notes that you also had a Shadowman experience once. I guess it's once. I don't have any of the details on this. You just mentioned to me that you had seen Shadowman, and this is actually a phenomenon that I'm pretty well interested in, considering it has so much to do with sleep paralysis usually, and I love the whole diving into sleep paralysis and trying to figure that out. So did this happen while you were awake or asleep? I want to know.
I was fully conscious.
Okay, so you were up.
I was standing up. I was. This was a hard one for me because the tale is totally dependent on knowing the layout of the building, and it's hard to describe. I'd almost have to draw a diagram for you to understand exactly what I mean. But this was an old Bell Atlantic office building that had been purchased and refurbished and turned into a bit of a boarding house.
Where was there a Bell Atlantic office building?
This was on Woodley Road.
On Woodley in Staunton.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's been a long time since anyone's heard the name Bell Atlantic.
Yeah.
Dude, this building had weird energy. You know, I'm not trying to sound like, you know, I know what I'm talking about, but it definitely had a weird air to the building. And that guy, what was his name? Aaron or something?
We'll call him Aaron Harrell for the purposes of the story. He even said he spent the night there the first night he bought the building. He spent the night there alone and got a little wigged out, but he doesn't believe in this sort of thing.
So you knew the owner?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, he was, he lived in the building as well. He had an entire apartment, whereas the rest of the building was just made into rooms. Him and his wife and son were there.
Anyway, he turned the rooms into like these, the office rooms into like apartments. We had a communal kitchen there, and everybody used the kitchen, a communal bathroom, and it was pretty nice. It was cool how he did it, but like I said, the building had a weird energy to it. I never saw anything myself, but you know, Josh saw something there. So
without people having an in-depth knowledge of the layout of the building, could you give us a sort of a rundown of what happened?
I don't know. I'm gonna try the best I can to roughly describe the layout. Imagine, if you will, an L-shaped hallway. Okay. On the inside corner of the L is a kitchen. The kitchen has 2 doors in the corner of the L, so that there's only a tiny V-shaped sliver of the kitchen corner between the 2 doors.
Okay.
I don't know if that makes any sense, but it'll have to for now. On one end of the hall, there were drink machines. And if you go down, walk to the bend in the hallway and take a left, go past the other kitchen door, there's a door that leads to another hallway. Well, it leads into a foyer. On the other side of the foyer is another door leading into another L-shaped hallway. And then to the right is the exit. Okay, so I was at the vending machines buying a drink, and I sensed a movement. I glanced to my right, and I saw a black humanoid shape step out of my view as soon as I looked. He went around the corner. Okay. Now, me knowing the layout of the hallway, I took a few steps forward and kind of leaned to the side because I knew I could see straight through both of those kitchen doors. And when I did that, I saw it cross the opposite kitchen door Now, this little tiny piece of kitchen wall between the two doors was not very large. A person could not have hidden behind it. You know, it's almost like you see the cartoons with the tree that's maybe 6 inches in diameter and somebody disappears behind it. It's not possible. So I saw it disappear behind the corner, and then as I looked, it reappeared on the other side. And there was a few seconds interval in between where it was just, I guess, hidden in that little tiny place. And so it walked, and it disappeared on the other side of the door frame. And I never heard a door open. Because once you get past that, as I said, there's nothing but a door leading into a foyer. Never heard a door open. But I thought, you know, that's a strange thing. What was that? So I go and I open the door to the foyer. I turn to the right and look out the window of the exit door. There's no one out there. I go to the opposite hallway. There's no one there. That's about it.
It was just gone.
It was gone. It was gone. I don't think it ever used a door. It was like a moving silhouette. Is what it was.
Yeah, but just a black shape.
Mm-hmm.
Looked kind of humanoid.
Mm-hmm. And I saw it just long enough to make out the shape.
And the building owner, did he ever mention anything weird ever happening there?
He said he was a little wigged out. The night he spent there alone when he bought the building, he never said anything apart from that. I don't think he believed in this sort of thing.
He just thought it was creepy to be there alone.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Probably. I don't blame him.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of things that could do that. Just the way a building looks can do that to you.
The building itself was empty for a long time. And I vaguely seem to remember somebody mentioning that there was a murder in that building.
Okay.
After the Bell Atlantic had vacated it.
Yeah, that was after they got busted, broken up by the government.
They got bought out by Bill Gates.
Yeah, so someone in that company decided it was over for them.
Yeah.
Just ended it all right there.
James Earl Jones
on Woodley Road.
ended his contract, and that was it for Bell Atlantic.
We lost James. Pull the fire alarm. We're out. Yeah, so that is completely inexplicable. It could, that could be anything from, well, who knows what it could be. I mean, a lot of these things are associated with, like I said before, sleep paralysis, but people also see them when they're awake. So you might see it in association with perhaps haunted places. And, even weirder things than that. A lot of people report these things with being out in the woods. They'll see things like this, or demonic experiences, or if people stay up too late, or, days on end on drugs, they'll start seeing them too. So what exactly a shadow man is or symbolizes, or where it comes from, it's totally up in the air. It's a toss-up.
Yeah, I wouldn't even begin to guess. But I can tell you, if it was not a well-lit hallway with white walls, I likely would never have noticed it.
Yeah. Yeah, well, thank you for sharing that. That's always interesting to me, the Shadow Man. Where is he? What is he? Well, the Hat Man, the whole phenomenon is crazy too. We're not going to get into that today. I could probably talk forever about that.
The Hat Man?
Yeah, the Hat Man.
I've never heard of that.
He's their leader.
Okay.
Well,
I've heard of the Slender Man.
Yeah, the Slender Man's made up.
Oh, yeah.
He's just
My
fiction.
10-year-old son talks about it. I'm like, okay.
Tell that to the high school girls who are stabbing each other over him.
Yeah, well, they may have believed it. They may have found something there. I doubt it, though. I'm pretty sure they're just getting really, really into fiction. You know
It's
how
a sad, twisted story.
You know how some people will watch a show so religiously and get so involved in it that they start shipping the other characters?
Yep.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean,
I think that's what those girls were doing with Slender Man.
I think it's something to do with consciousness and, like, self-created thought forms.
The Tulpas.
Sometimes. Tulpas, yeah.
You mean like a
Tibetan monks?
projection?
Well, in the Tibetan monks, they have something called a yidam. It's kind of like a tulpa, I guess. I don't know what a tulpa is, but
It's a manifestation through thought.
it's the same thing. So they go in
Like
a
a
cave.
projection.
They go in a cave and they meditate on this image in their head, this creature they create themselves until they can literally see it themselves. And that's when they leave the cave. And this thing is a protector, a spiritual protector for themselves. It's like a thought form that protects them. It's it's a weird thing. I've read about it.
Sounds exactly the same.
Yeah. Well, maybe there's something to that.
It's like a psychic golem.
Yeah, I think
exactly.
tulpas are generally referred to though in a more of a collective consciousness way, where
Right.
if enough people believe in something, like Santa Claus, then he becomes real.
Like a Jungian type thing.
Yeah, like
Carl Jung.
Yeah, Carl Jung. But let's move on to the next story. Did you guys want to get into? I've got 2 more left written down here in my notes. Did you want to get into the orbs or to the out of body stuff?
We can do the out of body thing. I mean,
okay. So Derek, yeah, the first thing I ever heard about you, except for one time, I think Josh told me that you hid from the cops behind a couch. Was that Derek?
Oh, that was the time we were drinking at Kurt's and the cops showed up and they were 3 feet from the door and you dove for the lamp and turned all the lights off.
Oh, that, yeah. That was the one.
The cops like, why'd you turn the lights off?
I vaguely remember
the rest of us were like, I don't know why you turned the lights off.
Well, no, dude. There was flashlights outside the window and they didn't announce themselves. So naturally, you can see inside of a building if the lights are on and it's dark outside, but you can't see outside if the lights are on inside. So I cut the lights off to be able to see what was out there because I didn't know who it was.
And so more equalize the situation.
Yeah. And, they took it and ran with it.
Of course they would. Cops' main intent is to incriminate.
Right. And I wish it was to serve and protect. But anyway. Yeah. So growing up, I got involved into, reading about things and learning as much as I could about the other world and the unknown. And I learned about astral projection, OBEs, etc. I rented a book from the library, checked out a book, and I started doing these exercises. And I think eventually it kind of manifested. It happened for me. And it was eye-opening and frightening. And I was convinced that it was real. So I never did it again.
Can you go over real quick what those exercises were that you had to do?
Well, you go into a state of ultra relaxation and you relax each individual part of your body. You start with your toe, your big toe. You go to your next, your middle toe, down. You go to your foot.
Oh, that's on a really minute scale.
It's very mindful. And you go step by step all the way up to the top of your head. And then you get to that point and you're completely relaxed. And you stay there. And then there's different exercises as far as like how you achieve an astral projection. You can tie a string above your head with a thumbtack, and you visualize yourself climbing out of your body with that string, or you like visualize yourself rolling out of your body literally onto the floor. Well, I tried this numerous times and I got to certain stages where you'll start hearing like mechanical noises and crickets and weird sounds. And it's really frightening. I never really was able to achieve it that way because it's so scary. And
that sounds incredibly surreal. Like you heard like clockwork sounds,
dude,
or like kind of big factory booming noises.
It's like lawnmowers and mechanical noises and pops and clicks. It's really weird.
Huh.
It's frightening. And it comes, a little bit after you achieve ultimate relaxation, and there's different, like I said, there's different ways to achieve that point. So I would get to that point and I would freak out and wake up, come to, and I never really achieved it. But this one instance where I know for a fact that's what happened. I came home, I go to bed as normal and I'm laying there, I go to sleep, but I wake up and basically I woke up staring at a Washington quarter that was glowing, and it was glowing because of the black light in the room. When the next room over was the washroom, and I didn't know it at the time. You wake up and you're like staring at some otherworldly thing. You're like, what the hell? I'm in a dream? No, I'm awake. And I was like, holy shit, I'm having an astral projection, because I knew, like, because I was aware. I was fully aware. It wasn't a dream. I was fully aware with my eyes open. And I remember that moment when I said, holy shit, I'm having an astral projection. I slammed back into my body in my room, the next room over. And sure enough, I get up and like go outside the room, and there's that corridor on the floor, because I had, the wash machines were outside my room. This is in the basement. And the corridor was illuminated by the black light. It was shiny silver.
Yeah.
And I think in my astral form, this is just theory, I think I was drawn to this because it was shiny. And I was satisfied at that point. I was a little freaked out. I was a little excited. I was like, cool, it's real. That's what I told myself. And I just kind of laid there in bed and went back to sleep. But, that moment, when you realize that you've physically, through your mind, have viewed another location, even though it's 5 feet away into the next room, you literally did it. Like, I'm convinced it's a real thing. Like, I experienced it. Now, I haven't experienced that again, but I have remote viewed before.
And how long do you think this experience in particular lasted? Because you said you saw the quarter. Were you able to like kind of shift your focus and look around and see anything else, or was it just sort of?
I was about a foot. I was about a foot above the quarter, looking straight down at it, and I remember kind of just like turning my body, so to speak, and kind of seeing darkness on either side. So the quarter was like my light source, like a moth to a light.
Mm.
And when I realized that I was awake in that state, that's kind of what shook me and slammed me back into my body. So I didn't really see anything else. I didn't get to travel or go to other planets like they say you can do, which I believe you can do through training. I was as happy as being kind of like a student of this, the occult knowledge that it's real and you can do it. I was convinced, I'm still convinced that you can do it. It's just a matter of training yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's got to be some sort of significance to it, or credence to it, because even the FBI or the CIA have used this particular.
Right.
They've created subdivisions where they've had people remote viewing in order to spy or find
and I think
hostages or whatever.
Right. No, it's a real thing. The Gateway Project.
Yeah.
I found this out years later. Like I was like, before the internet was like really big and I could research these types of things, I found out about all the CIA stuff later on. And I was like, oh shit. Okay. So it kind of solidified my belief into it. Remote viewing is easier because you're not detached from your body, if that makes any sense. Because I've remote viewed too.
And in what way is it different? Because it sounds like an astral projection situation.
Astral projection looks like you're looking through your actual eyes.
Okay.
Into wherever you're at. Remote viewing has a vignette around your vision to where you're looking almost like through a hole into another room.
Okay.
If that makes any sense.
Yeah.
And both of them, like
looking through a window.
Exactly. But it's like a little tiny hole, and you see like, a little border, and you're like looking through a hole almost. It's really weird. But I've had experiences where I've woke up in the morning time and I've been looking at another location, and I like thought my eyes were open, and then I opened my eyes for real. I'm laying in my bed. Yeah. And I haven't been able to recreate that because of various reasons. I'm not healthy. I drink beer occasionally, I smoke pot and this and that. And I think that has a big effect on that, because when I was younger, 20 years old, my body was fresh. My mind was fresh. I think that has a big factor.
You weren't all toxified.
Exactly. Precisely.
So were there any other kind of significant things that you were able to go and view during these experiences?
No, for me, it was just a journey. It was me discovering that it was a real thing.
So the destination wasn't so much a big deal. It was more just the fact that you were finding out that this was a possibility in general.
No, I'm happy. I'm content knowing that you can do it.
And have you ever pursued actually trying? You said your astral projections kind of scared you off, but remote viewing, has that been something that you've wanted to pursue?
The only thing that I can do like kind of like whenever I want is a hypnagogic state. If you know what I mean.
Hypnagogic
Like,
hallucinations.
when you're kind of awake and asleep at the same time.
Yeah,
and you
that's
can
exactly
kinda,
what sleep paralysis
you're
is.
not really, you don't really have control like a lucid dream over your dream, but you can just see things and kind of beckon them, if that makes any sense.
More of like a lucid dreaming state?
Kind of like in a lucid dream. Lucid dreams are completely different. I've had those too. So I think they're all kind of different states of mind, different vibrations.
And did you ever have to practice to get into lucid dreaming?
Lucid dreams just happened.
Okay. I know a lot of people.
Lucid dreams were all a symptom of the astral projection training.
Okay. That's kind of what I was wondering. Because I know a lot of people will also pursue lucid dreaming because, you know, like for me, that's never happened. I don't imagine it ever will. But some people like have methods in which they can start building up their ability to do that, such as keeping a dream journal, trying to recall their dreams very, very often. And there's something with just focusing on what your dreams are that it starts to give you some sort of control. You can wrest control from your subconscious and bring it to your consciousness.
Okay. So a lucid dream for me is when you become aware that you are dreaming in a dream.
Yes.
So the first time it happened for me, you want me to go into this?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay. So I was in a dream and, you know, I was cruising down a road in my Blazer, like a dirt road. And I come to this point where there's like this giant cow in the road, right? Or bull, I should say, because it was so big I could drive my Blazer under the cow, right? Or the bull. And I remember,
this isn't a dream.
This is a dream. This is a dream.
I was going to say, if you're actually able to drive your Blazer under a bull, that's a
no, dude,
meaty thing.
And this is like 20 years ago. So I still remember this like very clearly. And, I drove underneath this thing and I hit its testicles with my Blazer. Right. Exactly. So this bull stayed stationary, didn't move at all, didn't make a noise. And I said to myself in the dream, I must be dreaming. And that's the key words for me personally. If I say that to myself in a dream, then I gain full control of my dream because I realize that I'm dreaming when I say that. So I said to myself, I must be dreaming because a bull would go haywire if you drove a Blazer into his testicles.
Presumably so, yeah.
Okay, so that happened. And I remember saying to myself, I must be dreaming. And boom, I was awake. Just like that. I freaked out and was ecstatic that I was in control of my dream. I remember taking my Blazer and driving, I just turned off the road and drove. I was driving through these huge trees and they were just splintering and exploding. I was just driving through it was a road. It was crazy. I drove off a cliff. The cliff just happened and I exploded out of my vehicle and turned into a fucking bird and flew and woke up from the excitement.
That sounds like a really exciting movie. And right when you fly off into the sunset, the credits start rolling.
Dude, it was crazy. And that's one of them instances or scenarios where I was like, okay, that's real.
This sort of thing is so far beyond my comprehension because
it is for everybody, dude.
Well, my only experience with dreams is I'm so unconscious during them that it's like I'm passively watching a movie, and it's always nonsense. There's nothing of any real significant relevance going on. It's always just some weird out of left field stuff, and the scenes are changing constantly, and the plot's changing constantly. And I'm not aware enough to realize that that's happening until after I've woken up and been just wow, that was just absolute weird nonsense.
If you can train yourself to ask yourself that question, am I dreaming? And I must be dreaming in a dream, then you will become aware of that dream. I'm convinced, because that's what it is for me. So I remember being a kid and this happening. I would wake up inside of a dream and be freaked out. And I would say, wake up, wake up, wake up. And I would wake up in my dream. I would wake up and wake up in my room. Because, as a kid, when you wake up inside your dream, it's kind of freaky. I didn't remember that actually until I started getting into this whole thing with the astral world. I remember thinking back, oh yeah, when I was a kid, that used to happen, but I didn't know what it was then. Now I know what it is. Have
you ever had a dreamception scenario where you're dreaming that you're dreaming that you're dreaming?
No.
I remember a story that my older brother told me that he was dreaming that he was asleep in bed and he was dreaming about standing in a blank room staring at an 8-foot tall transformer.
Oh, weird.
it's something that stuck with me since I think I was probably about 8 when I heard that story.
Oh, that's kind of weird because I've had a similar experience.
Yeah, how so?
Well, I mean, I woke up, like, had a waking dream when I was a kid that I was in my room with like 3 really tall fucking robots. I woke up and I could almost see them, and your room is like kind of lit by the street light as a kid. So the only thing you can see is the like dark shapes. And I kind of came to a waking state and could see these like 3 robot figures in my room. I remember waking up more and then kind of fading away. So yeah, I mean, kids have such a vivid imagination. They have the powers that we don't have anymore because we've ruined our bodies through whatever.
Yeah, well, I mean, sometimes I think that some of the things that we do to ruin our bodies can also bring on these hypnagogic situations.
Oh yeah,
And
shamanism.
here's something I've never gotten into on the show yet, or not told. But a couple of years ago, I'd been going through a really rough patch in my life, and I was basically just like drinking and crying all the time. And I think that is what caused me to have these 2 nights in a row of sleep paralysis experiences. And it was nothing, super crazy like you'll hear a lot of people tell about. I think when you hear a story, it's usually because something really crazy happened during their experience.
Yeah.
But for me, the first night I woke up, I was in my bed, and it was a dark room, but I could just sort of see the shadows in the corners of my room just sort like kind of shifting, kind of
Right.
coming closer, and it looked like I had this fisheye lens effect starting to happen, and it felt like there was something trying to come and get at me. So I wanted to just point at the door and yell, "Get out!" Right? And I flop my arm over because I can't really move it. I'm paralyzed in my sleep.
Yep.
And when I try to yell, "Get out!" I just go,
Right.
and then I wake up and I was like, "Oh, I wasn't even awake for that." It felt so real.
No, like when you're in that state of mind, your brain waves are in that frequency. Your physical body cannot move. I think that has to do with your body, your astral body. I don't have any other term for it. Detaches because of that. Like your physical body is no more at that point. You're at a higher conscience level. But at the same time, it's like riding a wave. It's so easy to fall off your surfboard at that point.
Yeah.
But if you focus too much, you can also fall off. So it's like a dance almost. You have to stay calm, and it's hard to do because it's such a frightening thing. It's so otherworldly when it happens.
It is really odd. It feels like you're awake, but also at the same time, you actually then wake up from that state of feeling like you're awake.
Right.
I think there is a mechanism by which your brain shuts down your body during REM sleep. I've heard it explained to me before, and I can't tell you verbatim what it was, but there's like a sort of a synapse that gets shut off during sleeping or during REM sleep, just so that you don't. It's like a defense mechanism your body has, so you don't hurt yourself while you're dreaming. So you're not
exactly.
sleepwalking and doing stuff like that.
Which I used to do when I was a kid.
Yeah, I've done that as well before. I actually woke up standing next to my couch one time. I went to sleep in my bed upstairs, woke up standing next to the couch downstairs. It was weird.
Well, I used to go to the refrigerator and drink syrup. I was like 3 years old. And I remember like coming to at the fridge, my mom coming down and get me. I must have been a toddler. And I'd be down at the fridge, drinking syrup.
That's that good sugar.
It's that good sugar.
Yeah, man. Yeah. I did a lot of sleep talking when I was a kid. Not so much sleepwalking.
I used to leave my body and see all kinds of weird shit when I was a kid.
Yeah?
Yeah.
You want to get into a little bit of that?
No.
Not really?
I can tell you it always terrified me.
Yeah, I could see why.
It's a terrifying experience. I have had maybe 3 out-of-body experiences as an adult. They were all unplanned and they were all terrifying. If I were in a headspace, if I were, if I could train myself to do this, it'd be one thing, but it's always unexpected. The last out-of-body experience I had, I believe I had been up for 4 or 5 days and had gone back to my house to go to sleep. Now, at this time that this happened, I would say my late teens, early 20s, I collected a lot of action figures.
I remember this.
And I had Mulder and Scully from X-Files still in the package mounted on my wall with thumbtacks. The whole blister pack, both of them. Mulder on top, Scully on the bottom. Don't try to psychoanalyze that, please.
Jeez.
I'm not in here for gender war. And I turned the lights out and I went to sleep. Tried to go to sleep.
You said you'd been up for 4 or 5 days. What on earth would have kept you up for 4 or 5 days?
Do we really want to talk about this?
Not if you don't.
Dude, it wasn't like,
It was substance fueled.
it wasn't meth though, dude.
I know,
we were just partying. We
a-
were kids, man.
drinking
We
a
were
lot.
drinking and smoking pot.
Coffee, right?
Yeah.
Coffee.
No, I've
No,
never,
for real.
I don't do the upper drugs or stuff like that, but I was up for days.
Yeah, I mean, I'd been up for 3 days at one time when I was in my early 20s.
You get a little kooky.
Only off of like just drinking beer and drinking water
Yeah.
and eating like a chicken sandwich every now and then and just like dancing. Like
For the record, this is not meth.
it was kind of adrenaline fueled, honestly.
Yeah, absolutely.
And also like peer pressure. People are like, "Oh yeah, we're gonna stay up all night and we're gonna drink and party, and then we're gonna stay up all next night and drink and party." And by the time that I had to go back to work, I was like, "Oh, why did I do any of that?"
I've had a lifelong struggle with insomnia too. So
Yeah.
if there was ever a party like that, I was the guy saying, "What? Don't go to sleep." It was me. But anyway, yeah, I'd been up a while. Finally went home to crash. Turn the lamp out, and I'm laying there, and suddenly, of course, it's always sudden. That's why it's so damn frightening. I don't know how to explain it. I really don't.
Well, you have to explain it.
It was, man, it was like the Gravitron. You guys know what I'm talking about?
I know.
The thing that spins you
The
around
thing
in
that
50 different
spins
directions.
and you're
UFO carnival ride.
Yeah, and you're stuck to the wall by centrifugal force.
Yeah.
That's what it felt like. But it was blackness. Of course, the lamp was out. I didn't think about that at the time. There was literally no light in the room.
So
But
it's
yeah.
kind of akin to being dizzy, but like feeling a sort of G-force as well.
I didn't feel dizzy. It was not the spinning aspect of it. It was the being pinned to the wall aspect, not touching the floor, right? But then I noticed that there were objects in my back. Like I was pressed up against a flat surface with something on it, and I started to concentrate on the feeling in my back, and that's when I realized it was the blister packs of Mulder and Scully hanging on my wall. I was being pinned to my wall right where I had those 2 action figures hung on it.
Yet you were still also in bed.
Physically, yeah.
Okay.
And I think it's when I gathered actually what was happening. I woke up and I sat up and I turned the light on, and I guarantee you I didn't go to sleep for another 2 or 3 hours, and I never turned the lamp on again. I never turned the lamp off again that night.
Yeah, that's Josh, that's crazy, dude.
It's terrifying.
Yeah,
It's terrifying.
I'd say that
I knew what
freaked
it
me out.
was. As soon as I was awake, I knew what it was. But, what are you going to do?
So it almost felt like you were basically just forced out of your body,
Up against the wall, yeah.
and yet you still had this you might say spiritual incarnation of you, or I don't even know how to paraphrase that.
They call it your ethereal body.
Your ethereal body. Thank you,
Yeah.
Derek. It still had the feelings, the sensations that your physical body would have.
I don't know. It's so long ago. I don't know that I felt it as if I would feel it now, physically. I don't know. But I knew that I sensed the presence of something in my back. And I recognized the shape. I had to recognize the shape because I had no visual reference.
So you did have sort of a sensation, maybe not a physical one but it
Yeah,
represented a physical
It's
sensation.
damn hard to put into words. But I think you've got it in essence.
Yeah, that's what I'm getting from that. Man, that's crazy. Like,
He told me about this before my incident happened.
okay.
Yeah.
Is that what got you into it?
No. I was into this stuff before then. I got a book on Druidism when I was like 12 years old. My granddad was like, "Well, you're not going to be biting off chicken heads, are you?"
Be like, no, Dad, wink, wink.
No. Yeah. So the whole world of like the unknown opened to me early on in age. So I was privy to certain things,
Yeah, how much left is there from actual druidism? Because
Nothing.
I was going to say, as we were talking before we started recording about how there's, druidism was a oral tradition that was passed down, and it's been totally basically wiped out.
The Romans chased them to an island and killed off all the last druids. And Julius Caesar had historians, he wrote about the druids and the Wicker Man, etc. But, there's any books you find on druidism is completely neo-druid. It's new. It's made up.
Yeah,
and it's
kind of interpreted, fill in the blanks.
Yeah,
sort of like Jurassic Park, how those dinosaurs weren't really dinosaurs.
We know
they were basically frogs.
We know there was a thing with oak trees and mistletoe, and that's about it. There was not much known because their whole tradition was orally passed down. But yeah, there's not much known on druids.
No, I really don't know anything about druidism.
I wish there was.
I do believe I've seen some people who are archaeologists who have gone into some of the whatever is left over from that culture, and found evidence of sacrifice.
Oh yeah, Dev. Yeah, it's like we're talking like way before writing, way before anything we know, like the Stonehenge, and all this.
I was going to say sacrifice is almost a given in any pagan culture. It seemed to have been a worldwide phenomenon. Even like back in the Abrahamic religions, sacrifice was huge until
they worshipped
the Messiah.
A cow version of something, didn't they?
Yeah, that was the god Baal.
Baal, yeah, which the Illuminati still worship.
So there was one more story that I had in my notes. I don't know if there's anything else that we'll be getting into tonight, but the story of the orbs in the cemetery struck me as particularly fascinating. So we're saving possibly the best for last. I don't know if it's the best. I haven't heard it yet. But I love orb stories, particularly because I'm into the Sasquatch phenomenon, and they go hand in hand so often it's not even funny.
Orbs and Sasquatch?
Yeah,
I would have never
Really?
guessed.
I didn't know that. I've seen orbs like 4 or 5 times in my life.
Yeah, well, I mean, they come up in totally unrelated circumstances as well, but like I'm talking about stories of Sasquatch holding orbs or creating them. These things come up sometimes, and then just them being sort of in the same vicinities or areas, either at the same time or at different times. All that said, apparently you guys both went to a cemetery. What was it? Where was it?
Thornrose Cemetery in Staunton.
Oh, very popular cemetery.
Beautiful cemetery.
It's gorgeous. I'm definitely going to link some images in the show notes to that cemetery because actually I've got some friends who go up there pretty often just to photograph the cemetery. And
dude, we can go there. I can show you where I saw the orbs above the pine trees there. And Josh saw some, apparently the same ones that night, go behind tombstones. And they're like orange orbs, and it's.
Well, set us up real quick. How did you guys come about? I mean, I guess honestly, knowing you guys, you're probably just like, hey, let's go to the cemetery like we do every week.
Dude, exactly.
More or less.
Yeah, man. We're kids, hanging out in the cemetery, and
I think I was living across the street at the time. Was that when I was with?
Yeah, it's when you were with Kurt.
Yeah.
So,
the house I was renting a room from a friend of ours, a mutual friend, and it basically overlooked my bedroom window overlooked the cemetery from across the street. So, late night adventure. Hey, where are we going to go? That way.
And all the houses across from Thornrose, they're pretty old buildings.
They are.
It's all old.
I would say pre-1940s. Yeah. I mean, some of those places are falling apart.
Dude,
my friend's mother, her name is Alice Gaylor. She does proof typing for books locally. She takes the manuscripts and she turns them into what you see on the page. And she lent me a book that she did on the history of Staunton once, just kind of showing off her art, her craft rather. And I got to reading it, and Thornrose was basically a wooded hill where they would just dump corpses long before it was a cemetery.
Wow.
They didn't bury them. They just dumped
No.
them? Oh.
Do you remember about when that actually became a cemetery?
I don't remember exactly, but I'm guessing
When it became consecrated earth?
Dude, that's an old cemetery, man.
I don't know. You could
It
find.
is.
I'm sure you could find out
It
easily.
is.
I
And
don't have the information.
And let me just describe it a little bit, and you guys can help with this, just for the listeners in the audience. It's got a stone wall all around it, and just this beautiful gate to get in with like a guardhouse. And first thing you see are mausoleums.
Yep.
It's not even tombstones; it's mausoleums, and then tombstones kind of stretch out over the hillside all around. It's fairly vast. I wouldn't say it's huge, but it's a pretty big cemetery. It's no Arlington.
No. It's like a square mile.
Uncle Sam didn't pay for Thornrose either.
I don't think they allow burials there anymore. It's filled up, I think, is what I heard last. I could be wrong on that.
I hadn't heard that, and I know there's a good little piece of land they could still.
Yeah, I think
inside the wall.
I think if you get to the back end,
I've heard that they don't do any more burials there.
Fascinating.
I could be wrong.
I'd like to look that up and find out.
sounds bad for business, if that's the case.
Well,
You've only got so much land.
so
It's true.
You're gonna have to start. You're gonna have to dig them
You
all
can
up.
start-
and,
you can start
and
playing-
bury them upright if you want to
Start
fit more.
playing matchmaker after people are dead, and corpse matchmaker.
I like the way you think.
Bury them together.
we can make a headstone disappear.
Dig them up and put them in a mulcher.
Yeah.
Yeah, so were you guys going this? I'd imagine you're going at night if you're seeing orbs. I mean, they can be seen during the daytime, but
No, this was late
evening.
night.
This was evening, like there was still daylight out. Like it looked like a faint orange orb. Yeah, dude, it was not dark. We could still, it was daylight. It was like dusk.
Okay, I'm remembering it different, but
Well, how do you remember?
I thought it was late at night.
No, dude, it was like
could it be a separate instance?
No.
man. It was like
We were only
dude.
once in the cemetery together and saw the same
Actually,
thing.
I think it's when Kurt.
So it
lived
only
up-
happened once.
It's when Kurt lived up on the hill with the house that had the wash machine on the side of the house.
Oh, that's right. We used to go through the cemetery to get to his house because
Yeah.
there's a hole in the back.
I'm not going to
fence.
go into that whole thing, but I remember it was at least dusk. Because it was like, we saw this thing and I thought it was a plane at first. And the way it traveled, it looked like a balloon being pulled in the air. It was not a straight path. It was like a wavering kind of floaty type thing, And it was like it looked to me like it was the size of a beach ball.
That's pretty
But-
huge.
But I had no frame of comparison. Like it was like far off it was like, 100 feet away. It was 60 feet up in the air. It could have been the size of a baseball for all I know. But, to me, it seemed like it was the size of a beach ball.
I don't think you're giving yourself enough credibility there.
What do you mean?
It could have been the size of a beach ball or a baseball. I mean, you know generally the size.
Well, if you
and
have
those
no
two
frame-
things are very.
You have no frame of reference, though. There's no sight thing that can give you a.
well, the distance, I think, because
Well,
you saw it go
even
behind a
then-
tree, right?
It was way up in the air. It was behind a tree. It could have been far off. It could have been 1,000 feet off. And it appeared to be the size of a baseball, or it could have been closer and been the beach ball size. I don't know how
Okay.
big. I don't know how big it was, but it was in that range. It was in that size range. I know that it was a faint orange glow, and it did not fly in a straight line. It was like a wavering kind of like. I don't know how to describe it. I always think of it as like a balloon on a string being pulled behind a car, kind of
Okay.
like a wavering style flight.
Did the light have a consistent glow, or was it sort of
It was like
flickering like you?
no, it was a consistent dim glow.
Okay.
Yeah,
How solid did it look?
it was a solid orb, just a solid orange dim glow.
Kind of like a glass bulb that has a light in it, or was it just sort of more
I
of a
couldn't
fuzzy,
tell.
soft light?
It was what do you think, Josh?
It was faint. It was really. It was just faint.
To me, it just seemed like a paper cutout of like an orange dim light.
Mm-hmm.
It didn't have any kind of wavering lightness to it. It was
There were
just
no
like,
rays coming off of it. It wasn't bright enough for
It was
that.
a dim, like a dull kind of glow.
Hmm.
Yeah. And I've seen that numerous times in Augusta County.
Derek is actually the one that caught it. He said, "Hey, look at that over there." there's an orb. I said, what are you talking about? And he pointed. It actually took a few seconds for my eyes to adjust and catch it. But once I did, I saw it. And by the time I saw it, I think it was maybe good 8 to 12 seconds before it disappeared.
Yeah, it was quick.
So we call this an orb currently, but because it's commonly described as an orb when someone sees a low to the ground,
It's a luminous
light,
ball.
Luminous ball. But what else?
Free floating.
What else could we call it?
I don't know.
A UAP or a UFO. It's a unidentified aerial phenomenon.
It was an unidentified floating object.
So I want to say this only because when people think of UAP or UFO, they think of a flying saucer, and they equate the idea of a UFO with a metallic disc flying around in the sky. It's not.
No.
It is a generalized term for something you see in the sky that you can't explain.
It's actually military classification.
It was
isn't
definitely a UAP.
Yeah.
UFO originally.
Yeah,
I
same
think
with
Project
UAP.
Blue Book came up with that. That was the Air Force thing.
Old Hynek.
Yeah. After they stopped calling them Foo Fighters.
Yeah, that was back in World
There was
War
another
II.
one. There was a Kraut something.
Oh, I don't know that one. But I've definitely heard Foo Fighters. That was World War II, right? They started calling them that.
Yeah.
And then
When they thought it was Japanese, and there was another name when they thought it was German. No, I'm thinking of the Russians. We won't go into that because my memory's too fuzzy.
and so after that happened, the government started getting curious and started classifying things.
Mm-hmm.
And a very general classification, UFO, unidentified flying object, doesn't necessarily mean a flying saucer, because most of the cases in World War II was balls of light.
I don't know. I haven't researched
Every
it
story
heavily.
I've heard has been balls of light. Sometimes cigar-shaped metallic craft. And saucers started coming around as well.
Yeah.
But all of these things are not exactly the same phenomenon. Maybe related in some way, I don't know, but not the same.
I've never been able to come to terms with the phrase cigar shaped. What is that? It's just a tube.
It's
a tube with rounded ends. I've never seen anything in fiction or reality that looks like that in the sky.
I think Fidel Castro came up with that term.
Oh, okay.
It would only
Cuban
make
alien
sense.
crisis.
Yeah. Well, it's awesome. Honestly, it's really awesome that you guys mentioned to me that these sightings were in Thornrose Cemetery, because now I feel like I've got someplace I could basically walk there from here.
Yeah.
And I don't know if I will in the wintertime at night, but certainly in the spring and the summer, I could go and see if I can find anything myself.
Dude, I can take you to the exact spot where I saw what I saw. I'm sure Josh was right there. So, we can do that.
Yeah, no, that sounds like a incredibly good idea. And thank you for all the stories that you've shared today. We touched a little bit back on that Craigsville house with the Luigi board. I really enjoyed that story, and I kind of wonder what was up with that. Was the medicine bottle just like a happy coincidence, or was that some? It strikes me as an ARG game. I don't know if you guys are familiar with ARG games.
I've heard the terminology.
Where it feels like you're given a clue, which leads you to another clue, which leads you to another clue, and the whole time it's just a game. Maybe ghosts like those things, those kinds of games.
Maybe
being dungeon master for an ARG, I don't know. But yeah, the OBE stories, the Shadowman, and then the Orbs in the cemetery.
it's the tip of the iceberg, man.
It sounds like it. You guys have had quite a bit, and you've touched on some things that we just didn't get into tonight.
Dude, I'm reluctant to even go over a lot of what I've experienced, because I feel like I want to protect myself. I'm not lying. I don't have nothing to prove. I'm not making money off this.
Well, it's not dangerous to say these things, not as far as I know.
Oh, that's true. Yeah. Yeah. Well, maybe down the road we can go into these things. I'm open to that.
This is a safe space, Derek. You can speak your mind here, but just don't say anything overtly homophobic.
Okay.
I feel like you just put that idea in my head, and I'm uncomfortable with that. I was not thinking about homophobia 5
I hate
seconds
Homo
ago.
sapiens.
I'm sorry. Do you feel unsafe now?
I do.
I will remove myself from the situation. But Josh and Derek, thank you guys so much for coming out again for a round 2. It's been a great time having you. It always is having you.
Yeah, brother.
And
Sure.
it's it's not been very often, Derek. I've seen you. This is probably our third or fourth time ever meeting,
Yeah,
but
man.
it's every time it's been very, very cordial and pleasant.
Yeah, man. Same to you.
So
Good times, great oldies. Same bat time, same bat channel.
Oldies 93.1 Wash FM. Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Good night, Ma.
cracks and falls away, disappears into the floor. And I'm still here to face another day. Who could ask for something more? Sprays only help to mask the pain. I'm numb enough to fake it all day, but please don't go away. Away. Taken out of context, forced to play a game. Now I'm full of disappointment. I know you feel the same. And with full trepidation, I hope to make a change, but I'm not sure which direction, from which I even came. might have different faces, we might have different names, and in the end it doesn't matter who we used to be.